everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. It is the first episode of February 2026. Today is the 2nd. It is Groundhog Day. And right off the bat, a bit of good news. Wyatt and Willie, Ontario's groundhog, is predicting an early spring. Good news, because we need a little bit of hope. And I'll tell you what, in this episode, we're going to talk a lot about hope. I'm going to get you caught up on all kinds of things that I think are worth highlighting from this weekend at the Conservative Convention in Alberta. But before I get to that, because I'm telling you, like 80% of what I do in this episode is going to be inspired, feel-good messaging. But before I get to that, something else that we got to talk about. It was coming down all weekend, and frankly, it was disgusting. It was outrageous. You can insert your own adjective if you want. I'm talking about this latest release of files from the Epstein Files. Before I talk about that, let's go back not even a year. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
And if you see our memo on Epstein, you will see, our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list, our July 6th memo.
There was no Epstein list. That again, the U.S. Attorney General. Now let's go to the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. Also, not even a year ago.
There's no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay.
Kash Patel, Pam Bondi suggesting there was nothing to the Epstein Files. Nothing to it. They didn't have anything. No smoking gun. Then where did these tens of thousands of pages that got dropped on the weekend come from? Where did the last drop come from? Were they being hidden from the FBI and the Department of Justice? Or are Kash Patel and Pam Bondi in on the cover-up? If you're a new listener to Scott Fox After 9, I'm going to tell you right off the bat that we've been hearing these stories for a long time. Things like Pizzagate, things like satanic rituals, and horrible, horrible stuff. Now there's definitely a link to Jeffrey Epstein and those stories, which until now were basically uncorroborated. Not enough evidence to suggest Pizzagate was true. Well, it certainly now seems like Pizzagate was true. This latest release from the Epstein Files is sick. It talks about satanic rituals being performed, young children being raped and dismembered. That's right, they killed people. They actually killed them. There are reports that people were eating intestines and brains and drinking blood. It is some of the sickest stuff I have ever seen that came down in this latest release of the Epstein Files. But I'll tell you what, don't just take my word for it. Here is the U.S. Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche.
Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced.
These files are heavily redacted. Most of the faces and names are blurred out. Some of them, I understand why, because it would be a victim or it would be someone who could be linked to a specific victim, and we don't want to take away anybody's anonymity who was abused. We don't want to re-traumatize them. But we now know there were people who did horrible, horrific, sick things. And my question is simple. Now that we're starting to get more from the Epstein Files, and there's a lot of pages to go through here, I'm not even ready to say everything that's on my mind about the Epstein Files, but we've got enough now, and there needs to be charges laid. People who were involved. If there are videos that truly do depict a child being murdered or dismembered or tortured, we absolutely have to lay charges. But is that actually going to happen? Todd Blanche, yesterday on This Week on ABC.
Your release on Friday has already received a response from the victims, from Jeffrey Epstein's victims. I want to show the statement right now. It says, survivors are having their names and identifying information exposed while the men who abuse us remain hidden and protected. This is outrageous. The Justice Department cannot claim it is finishing releasing files until every legally required document is released and every abuser and enabler is fully exposed. Will there be more releases?
I mean, look, first of all, we took great pains, as I explained on Friday, to make sure that we protected victims. We are talking about a review of 3.5 million pieces of paper that were released on Friday. Every time we hear from a victim or their lawyer that they believe that their name was not properly redacted, we immediately rectify that. And the numbers we're talking about, just so the American people understand, we're talking about 0.001% of all the materials. And we knew this. I said this on Friday, that of course the nature of this type of review was the volume of materials that were reviewed, that there would be times when this happened. And so we're working hard to make sure that we fix that, and I expect that will continue.
Will more documents be released?
We have released, there are a small number of documents, as I said on Friday, that we're waiting for a judge to say we're allowed to release because of a protective order. But this review is over. I mean, we reviewed over 6 million pieces of paper, thousands of videos, tens of thousands of images, and which is what the statute required us to do. You know, it's interesting. Leadership on the Hill, Congressman Massey, Senator Schumer, are quick to complain. There is no way they have spent any time looking at the materials we produce, because I know the materials we produced them on Friday. By Saturday, they're already complaining about what we did. And by the way, apparently Massey and others wrote a letter to come and review unredacted materials. I didn't get that letter yet. They leaked it to the press before they actually sent it to me. But yeah, that's absolutely, totally fine. We have nothing to hide. We have nothing to hide. We never did. And our doors are open if they want to come and review any of the materials that we produced.
So what, that's it? We're just done with this now. The hell we are. No way. People have been waiting a long time to get these files because you know what? We've suspected for a long time that there were people who used their money, power, and influence to exploit children, to work around the law and perform horrible, horrible deeds and rituals and more on children. And they're just going to get away with it? No, I don't accept that. I don't accept that one bit. Friends, I'm still going through it. There's still a lot of stuff to go through, and some of the people that I trust a lot are spending a lot of time trying to find who did what. Difficult with, well, you just heard Todd Blanche say, thousands of images and videos. They're out there. They're redacted. The public isn't seeing them. And some of them probably for the best, because it is the worst of the worst. Some of the stories that leaked this weekend were preposterous. Stories about Bill Gates apparently trying to secure antibiotics from Jeffrey Epstein because he may have contracted an STI. Wanted to covertly give them to his wife. Well, that's not exactly what Bill Gates has led us to believe all this time, is it?
Now, one of the issues that's dogged you is that of your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you regret the relationship that you maintained with him against Melinda's advice and wishes?
Oh, I've said that you're going way back in time. But yeah,
new audience.
I will say for the, over 100 times, I shouldn't have had dinners with him.
Epstein had a way of sexually compromising people. Is that what Melinda was warning you about?
No. I mean, no, I had dinner with him, and that's all.
Okay, well, clearly that wasn't true, was it? There is going to be a lot to come out of the Epstein files. People are still going through them. Again, people that I trust are flagging different things for me. And as more comes out, great. Let it get exposed to the light. Let people start to realize that some of those stories that have been whispered about and rumored about for all these years are actually true. From the Epstein files, some of those things were absolutely horrific, satanic in nature. I'm still shocked at what I read. I got to do something to clean up my my algorithm on my social media, because I did do a deep dive into it this weekend, and now that's all that's coming up. And frankly, I can't look at some of it anymore. It's too much. So as more does come out about the Epstein files, I'll be talking about it here. This is something important to me because we have to send a message that nobody is above the law. And despite how many billions or trillions of dollars you have, you cannot use your money, your position in the world, your fame, and what have you, to abuse and do horrific things to kids. It's just, it can't fly. There's got to be charges. I'm going to move on. I didn't want to start things on a negative note, but let's be honest. The Epstein Files is a big thing. People have been waiting for a long time for these files to come out, and it was a lot of stops and starts, and there has to be charges. I mean, God, there's just got to be. We got to make progress on this and make sure the people who did this are held accountable. I'll stay on it here in the podcast. But now I'm going to move on because this weekend I thought was filled with great messages of hope. There's 3 people you're going to hear from coming up on the pod. You're going to hear from Pierre Poilievre. I have picked out just a few moments from his speech on Friday night in Calgary that I think are worth hearing again. And if you didn't see the whole speech, listen to this pod and you'll be completely caught up. Then I'm going to play a little bit of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. She was the speaker to close out the convention on Saturday. She too had some great messages. And you're also going to hear from one of the conservative influencers who was at the convention. Jasmine Laine got up and gave a speech, which I thought was one for the ages. I thought she had some real great stuff in there. And I want to play just a few highlights of that for you. If I have time, I'm going to circle back and talk about something that I talked about a lot on Thursday and Friday, the potential of Alberta sovereignty. Let's start off with Friday night. Pierre Poilievre facing a leadership review, which is mandatory after the party does not form government after an election. This was a mandatory thing, and it was the 3rd time Pierre had to face the voters in a year. This guy has to be exhausted. He went from the general election to the by-election, now to the leadership review, and he did a great speech.
But my message to those people who have felt unseen for too long, who are carrying the country on their back and feel underappreciated and overworked, conservatives see you and conservatives will fight for you. Thank you. The people need the government off their backs, out of their way, and by their sides. And when I become Prime Minister, these great Canadians will not need to ask my permission to succeed. Business will get ahead by having the best product, not the best lobbyist, by pleasing customers, not pleasing politicians. I love you too. Thank you.
This is a part of the speech when Pierre is talking to the middle class. And frankly, nobody on the other side is. Pierre Poilievre had a job. Not only did he have to convince members of the party that he was worthy of staying on as leader, he also had to redefine himself and start moving into a mode where he appears like a prime minister in waiting, not an opposition leader. 2 very tall tasks, by the way, and by my estimation, I thought it was a home run. It was a long speech. He's not getting credit for it like Carney got for the Davos speech, but at least Pierre did this one in Canada. And I thought that was very important. Some things that came out of this speech, the Conservatives are going to adopt a policy where if they form government, castle law will be the law of the land across Canada. Castle law. You have the right to use force to defend yourself, your family, and your property. People have been calling for castle laws for a long time. It is now policy of the Conservative Party of Canada that if they form government, there will be castle laws in Canada. And that's just one of the examples of new policies that was passed. And by the way, before I go on any further, there was a lot of interruptions to the speech where people stood up to give Pierre a standing ovation. I'm cutting out just some of that to give you just the important stuff so you're completely caught up and you've got the themes that he talked about this weekend in Alberta. So while I'm not editing out any content, I am editing out some of the gaps. Here's a little more of Pierre Poilievre. This, I thought, was another important moment.
It's funny to watch the Liberal rhetoric. First, they said Conservatives have no policies. It's just slogans. Then they said Conservative policies are very scary. And then they said, we agree with all the Conservative policies. The best part of being Conservatives is that eventually everyone admits that we were right all along. It's not just the solutions for the past, it's the solutions for the future that we offer the Canadian people that brings so much hope. Policies like an affordable government for an affordable life. See, stronger take-home pay requires lower taxes. A strong dollar that buys more requires we end inflationary deficits. Both require we cut spending on bureaucracy, consultants, corporate welfare, foreign aid, and handouts to phony refugees.
Some blunt words there from Pierre Poilievre, flat out calling some of these fake asylum seekers phony. And while I think most of us know that the vast majority of these people coming here trying to claim asylum, we know the vast majority of them are not legitimate, bona fide refugee claims. That's the first time I've heard a politician actually call it out. So that was good. And by the way, part of the new conservative platform voted on by the members this weekend, they are going to fully endorse deporting people who are not supposed to be here. There will be deportations in Canada for people who are breaking the law by being here when they're not supposed to and taking advantage of the generosity of Canadians. There's hope in this message. And you know what? I felt it. I was watching it and I was watching my DMs and they were exploding as Pierre was speaking. A lot of people were messaging me as they were watching the speech. And I felt the hope. I felt the optimism. There's a lot of people who have felt like their government has left them behind, that they don't care, that they don't relate to the situation we're in. But people saw the exact opposite in the message that Pierre was giving out on Friday. And I think that's an important thing because, hey, things are not great right now. We know that. But just a little bit of hope. You know, I feel like that was something that a lot of people were missing. The groundhog today says early spring. Pierre Poilievre says he wants to be prime minister, and he's promising to do things that I think the average Canadian wants to see done. There's a little bit of hope there that somebody in Ottawa is listening. Here's more of Pierre Poilievre.
You know, here we go again. Liberals are in power, and just as night follows day, separatist movements are in resurgence back in Quebec and here in Alberta. These movements, which had been dormant or even dead when Prime Minister Harper left office. Now, we can simply attack people who feel this way, or we can ask them why. Why in Alberta and Quebec? Why, particularly among young people in those provinces, have so many lost hope in Confederation? Well, here's a few hints. For the last 10 years, Ottawa has told our young people that our history is filled with shame and horror, that we are a post-national country with no core identity, and that our youth will never own homes. But other than that, they should feel great about being united in Canada. All the while, the federal government stomps on Alberta's energy sector and Quebec's jurisdiction. Now, our message to those youth and to all of the people in Alberta and Quebec who are losing hope in our country: you will again have a country that respects your autonomy, is proud of your industries, unites us around our common identity and history, a country that will afford you the hopeful future that you have earned.
There's some great messaging again there from Pierre Poilievre to young people, particularly the ones who are interested in the sovereignty movement. There is hope. Someone in Ottawa cares. You know, I really have a feeling that when we go to the polls, it's going to be very much a clear choice for Canadians. There's going to be the Liberals who want to align us with China. There's going to be the Conservatives who want to work out a deal with the Americans, but retain our sovereignty within North America. You're going to have the Liberals who really can't fend off the sovereignty movement. They just can't. They're the ones who created the conditions for so many people to want to break free from Canada. But then you have the Conservatives who want to get back to our core identity and our principles and unite Canada once again and hopefully try and hold the country together. This is going to be a national unity election when we eventually have one, and I think that's going to be in the next few months. This is going to be an election on who our dance partner is going to be on the international stage. There's going to be a lot at stake. But again, Pierre Poilievre offering a clear vision. His message is simple. We are a united Canada, and we are going to focus on the middle class, and we're going to make life more affordable and get back to common sense policies. I thought it was brilliant. I really loved his speech. And you know what? There was some great policy things in there, but there's one moment from the speech that seems to be overshadowing just about everything else. And it was when we saw a very human side of Pierre. Not Pierre, the leader of the opposition. Not Pierre, the prime minister in waiting. Pierre, the dad.
Hope is on the way for our people as well. But hope is not just a comforting blanket. Hope is the knowledge that your work will fulfill your purpose, your why. He who has a why can bear any how. Viktor Frankl wrote, in the great book, Man's Search for Meaning. That thing that you call meaning could be for you a home, a career, a family, a business. Seeing your autistic daughter speak for the first time is the thing. It's the thing. That meaning is the thing that keeps people fighting on through hardship. People ask me, why? I keep going. You know, the slings and arrows, they're the easy part. Constantly being away from family, that's the harder part. You know, my little boy, Cruz, he cut out and colored a little paper Spider-Man and gave it for me to take on the road to stop bad guys. I look at it when I'm in the hotel room, sometimes late at night. It makes me smile. I see all those little scribbles and cut marks and imagine those little figures working away. And I know that one day I'll come home and those fingers will have grown big. And I miss him. And too often, I kiss my wife and daughter goodnight through FaceTime. So why keep going? Because we want our kids to have the same promise that we had. Because we want them to know that when you care about something, you work for it. When you believe in something, you fight for it. And most of all, when you start something, you never give up.
Does that give anybody who was maybe not thinking about voting for Pierre any pause just for a second to think, maybe I had that guy wrong? You know, it's real easy to see these politicians on TV and you hear the slogans and the news is just all over Pierre Poilievre. He can't do anything right in the eyes of the mainstream media. They are constantly beating him and conservatives down. That's just a fact. But when you hear him like that vulnerability, that dad moment, does that make you think he is a middle-class guy that gets it? He gets it. He understands what families deal with every single day. You know, he got all choked up when he mentioned his autistic nonverbal daughter. His kids were there at the convention watching dad give the speech. That must have been really hard when he heard that noise come out of his daughter there and realized what had just happened right there during his speech. I'm glad he acknowledged it. You know, the story about the Spider-Man that his son Cruz gave him to take with him to fight off the bad guys, keep him safe. How many parents carry something around with them that their kid gave them all the time? My kid gave me this. I hang on to it. I'll tell you what, I have a laptop bag, and the laptop bag goes with me everywhere because I need my computer for just about everything I do. And it was probably about, I don't know, a few months ago, randomly, I was thinking about my son, and he doesn't live here anymore. He lives in the States, and I'm happy for him. He's doing great. But just like Pierre said, eventually those small fingers get bigger and you miss them. When he was very young, my son he was a big fan of Bob the Builder, and he had a Bob the Builder set. And he gave me one of the screws from the Bob the Builder set. It's a yellow plastic screw. And he said, here, take this with you and think of me. And he was a toddler at the time when he gave me this. That was over 20 years ago. I still have that screw in my bag. And I think about him when I see it. That was a really relatable story that Pierre told. I thought that was a really humanizing moment. And I'm only going to do one more from this speech. It was, again, very long. I've just curated a collection of what I think are the most important moments from that speech that you could listen to. If you didn't see the speech, you could listen to these and be basically caught up. I want to play the ending now. This is Pierre Poilievre on The Weekend.
Because the unsung heroes who built and protect this country, who have it infinitely harder than I do, they never give up. So I have no right to give up. Because all of you who pound signs on frozen ground, knock doors on dark nights, and sacrifice warm family dinners for cold campaign pizza, you never give up, so I'll never give up. Because the young couple scrimping to start a family, and the single mother fighting each day to feed her kids, they never give up so that we never give up. Because the Canadian Pacific Railway workers who pounded spikes into frozen ground and forged steel ribbon that united East and West, they never gave up so we never gave up. Because the Canadian teenagers living in frozen, rat-infested trenches who had it infinitely harder than we do, they fought on, they never gave up, and they won wars so that we will never give up on our country in these times. Only Canadians could carve the world's best country out of a big, cold, vast land, because we never give up, we never back down, we never run away, we stand united, tonight, together, always, because this country, its people, and promise are worth fighting for, because while some say this is as good as it gets, we know the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
What do you say, right? Great speech. I mean, there's a reason that he got 87.4% of the vote. One of my listeners on listener DMs on Friday actually guessed 87%, and he was absolutely right. Great guess. I don't remember who it was that sent it in. I think maybe Samuel. Very good. I was not that optimistic that he would get that high, but he did. And it's a sign that the conservative movement in Canada is united. And you know what? The mountain isn't that high. On the media, they make this seem insurmountable. They show polls that show the Liberals are ahead by 7 points. Look at the ridings. It's a hell of a lot closer than the media is making it seem. Victory is within reach for those who want to feel a little bit of optimism. I hope we have an election this spring. I think we're going to have an election this spring. That seems to be a focused Pierre Poilievre on the middle class, and that's exactly, in my estimation, what Canada needs right now. Now, he wasn't the only speaker at that convention. I'm going to play two more. This is Alberta Premier Danielle Smith.
But what I want to talk about today is the last 10 years. Because for 10 years, we saw a prime minister that did everything he could to devastate the West and drive our investment and jobs out while implementing radical activist policies that ramped up disorder and chaos. And it got worse over time when we saw the formation of a federal left-wing activist coalition government in Ottawa, led by then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his friend, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, that were doing all they possibly could to choke off and ultimately destroy our province's energy and agriculture sectors. They also led an attack on provincial jurisdiction, energy, health, education, childcare, you name it. They wanted control over it. They placed a production cap on our nation's most valuable strategic asset, the Alberta oil sands, and along with it, an effective moratorium on the pipelines and oil tankers needed to take that oil to markets around the world. They put a Greenpeace activist, Stephen Guilbeault, thankfully no longer at the cabinet table, in charge of this assault on Canada's economy. And that is where the real damage to Canada was done by Justin Trudeau and his allies. They intruded on areas where the provinces have prime jurisdiction. They violated our Constitution and the very ties that bind Canada together in the name of top-down bureaucratic onslaught. Pierre Poilievre and our Conservatives believe in our Constitution, in leaving the provinces to be provinces, focusing on what the federal government needs to do. Things like bail reform and building projects and supporting jobs for Canadians.
It's a very partisan message coming there from Premier Smith, but that's the reason that a lot of folks in Alberta in particular, and across the West, if I'm being honest, are seriously considering sovereignty. They've had enough with how they were treated. So much damage was done to this country under Justin Trudeau that part of the question we need to ask ourselves right now is, who can fix it? Who can undo the damage that Trudeau did? Pierre Poilievre or Mark Carney? And there's no right or wrong answer. You can feel however you want to feel about that. But that's what we need to ask ourselves. How can we fix the damage that's been done for the last 10 years? And who is the right person to fix that damage? It's not all forward looking. We've got work to do here in our country, and some of the reasons are right there, like Premier Smith just outlined. I'm going to get to one more clip from her speech, and then I'm going to move on to Jasmine Laine.
Canadians recognize that the left-wing activists have gone too far. They want order, they want justice, and they want to take their kids to a playground without worrying about discarded needles or addicts shooting up. Public safety is a cornerstone of society. When we can't guarantee that Canadians are safe in their own communities, it is a failure, one that any Conservative government would alleviate immediately, because the Conservative Party of Canada has strong leadership. Leadership with moral clarity, with a plan to restore Canada's economic leadership, to return Canada to an international economic engine, a stalwart defender of global freedom, and a place that holds true to the promise that if you work hard, you can get ahead. That is the leadership that Pierre Poilievre brings.
Really great stuff there from Premier Smith, but let me ask you a quick question. Just a philosophy thing. There are several Conservative premiers in Canada. You didn't hear anything from Tim Houston about Pierre Poilievre this weekend. You certainly didn't hear anything from Doug Ford about Pierre Poilievre this weekend. Why is Premier Smith the only one out there defending Pierre Poilievre? Not just defending him, she actually went to the convention. She was a keynote speaker. She gave a great speech. You just heard a little bit of it. Where were the other so-called Conservative premiers, and why were they not backing the leader who has 87.4% support in the party? Why is that? Because frankly, I don't understand why they won't do it, unless they're just selfishly thinking of their own political ambitions. Before I get to Jasmine, let me play you just a couple of things. The Ontario PC convention was held this weekend. They wouldn't let the media in. Here is a reporter from Rebel News talking to Toronto police.
My knowledge, this is a private event.
Correct, yes.
Invitees only.
Yes.
And that would include the building and the entire property.
Sergeant, do you know why media is not allowed in to cover the event?
Well above me, sir.
Okay, I understand. But we have no intention of going into the facility. We're just reporting from outside.
Media also is not allowed here, according to the host of the event. So for that reason...
you mean outside?
Even outside, anywhere on the property. Anywhere, and that's the instruction that we've been given.
We're not harassed.
Isn't that horrible? What an awful, awful look for the Ontario PC party. It's the opposite of transparency. Why on earth would they not allow the media to come in and cover their convention? You know, I understand if there's some sensitive parts, maybe they're discussing controversial policies, maybe they do a closed-door session, but to just plain tell the media you're not welcome and to have Toronto police kicking media out. And by the way, a Conservative convention, that was a Conservative media outlet in Rebel News. Wouldn't even allow them in or to be on the property. I don't know what they're thinking, but hey, that's up to them. Either way, it does not seem like the provincial Conservatives are in any way, other than Alberta, willing to line up with the federal Conservatives. And I don't know what that's going to mean when we have an election, but you know, at some point soon, those premiers are going to have to ask themselves which team they want to be on here. Or maybe they should just change party affiliations. Premier Smith talked a lot about Alberta, and she talked a lot about why people in the West are upset and the assault from Justin Trudeau over the years on Western autonomy and on their resources, etc. Well, you know that there is a sovereignty movement that is growing in Alberta. Right now, I want to play for you just a quick clip of an interview that Vashi Kapelos from CTV News, Power Play, did with a representative of the separatist movement within Alberta.
Nobody's independent in the modern world. But do you think that we would be running to communist China the way that Mark Carney is? Mark Carney's making Canada dependent on communist China. You know, and to quote a good friend of mine, David Redmond, who's one of the best, North American defense analysts going, David Redmond stated clearly on a policy panel, just 2 weeks ago, communist China is not a trading partner. They are an enemy. So you want to talk about treasonous, swearing allegiance to communist China in Beijing while invoking the New World Order and then coming back to Canada, threatening war with the United States of America under Article 5 of the NATO treaty certainly smacks as being a lot more treasonous than anything that we're doing.
Okay, that's the view from those who are actually working on the sovereignty movement. There was a lot of folks on the left who raced to condemn them and call them traitors, including BC Premier David Eby, called them traitors. That was their side of the story. If you want to see that full interview, it is on the CTV News YouTube channel. One more person I want to play before I wrap up this edition, and it's not the first time I've played content from her because I think she's great. Jasmine Laine is a female conservative social media influencer, and a lot of influencers were out in Alberta for the convention this weekend. Jasmine got up and gave a speech, and I thought she had some really great moments in it. So I'm going to play just two. Jasmine Laine speaking at the conservative convention this weekend. Listen to this.
Talking about politics at that point in time in my life stopped being abstract. It stopped being risky because it really did become a moral obligation. Because in some way, shape, or form, politics affects each and every one of us. It shapes our futures. It determines our opportunity. It structures our lives. And it really does determine all the things that we have access to as citizens in a nation. And right now, people can feel that something has gone very wrong. And they don't feel that because the media told them. They don't feel that because a politician explained it well, but because real life has become harder. Real life has become more expensive and more constrained, and the stories that we are told about why that do not match real life. For years, people have been told that if you are struggling, it's because you just need to work harder. Or, of course, one of my personal favorites, it's a global phenomenon. If you're angry, it's because you're misinformed. And if you question the direction and data of this government and how conflicting all of that is, it must be because you're hateful, you're fearful, or you're just unintelligent, right? And this gaslighting, it doesn't just make people doubt facts, it makes them doubt themselves. It's designed that way. It's designed to isolate you, to make you feel ashamed, to make you self-censor, and to make you believe that you are alone. And once you believe all of those things, that's when you stop talking about it. But I want you to take a moment to look around this room. You are not alone. We are witnessing right now, it's not left versus right. It's actually just right versus wrong.
Strong words there from Jasmine, but that's an important message and one that I've tried to convey a number of times. If you're struggling, you're not alone. You know, when you watch the news and they try and tell you everything is great, maybe you watch a little bit of Question Period and you hear those liberal cabinet ministers insisting the economy is good. You do start to question yourself and you do start to think, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm not working hard enough. It can lead to depression and God knows what else. You don't need to feel that way. A lot of people are feeling it. And there is a place you can go where you don't have to feel alone. The Conservative Party of Canada. That convention on the weekend I found very inspiring, not the least of which was Pierre Poilievre's speech, but also words like this from a young conservative woman, Jasmine. She gave a great speech. Listen to just one more clip.
And the audacity for this Liberal government to tell us that we need to sacrifice more. It'll be worth it, though, by 2030, they say. It's so funny how that just keeps getting pushed back, because I remember them saying that back in 2015. It's almost as though they don't realize that our young people have made the biggest sacrifices in decades in our country's history. Sacrificing home ownership, the chance to be employed in a career that you love, having children, affording your dream wedding. How many people grew up with that? You'd make your Pinterest boards of all these things that you were so excited about for your future. And those are hard to achieve now. You're lucky if you achieve them. The ability to work hard and have the world be your oyster, because that was the dream that this great nation once promised them. We don't want to sacrifice anymore. We do not need to sacrifice anymore, especially not for an end goal that can't even be explained to us. We deserve honesty, and honesty is the Conservative advantage.
Well said by Jasmine. I think she did great. In fact, all of the influencers that were out there did a great job. I was really happy with the coverage and really happy with the messaging. You know, we go in these ebbs and flows. There's cycles to the news, and we were in a really depressing one for a while there. I found this weekend to be full of hope. Listening to these speeches, knowing that there are like-minded individuals out there who are all going to go forward over the next few months as we get closer to having an election, and they're going to knock on doors. They're going to try and convince their neighbors. They're not going to take no for an answer. They're not going to be shouted down by their boomer parents and grandparents and told that they're wrong, because enough's enough, and it is time for the middle class, particularly younger Canadians, to grab this country and take it back on the right track. And I think messages like that offer so much hope that we needed that, right? In the same way that here in Ontario, we got some sunshine this weekend, and I forgot how much I missed that. I know that we needed it, and just that little bit of sunshine made us feel good. Sometimes it's important to hear messages from people that are going through the same thing, that want the same goal, and to know that if we're united, we can make anything happen. Great stuff from this weekend at the Conservative Leadership Convention. Friends, have a great day. I'll have a brand new episode for you tomorrow of Scott Fox After 9. And as always, I'll leave you with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now. Oh, yeah.